Hello, everyone. I'm not officially calling the meeting because we need a quorum, and under the statute, the only thing you can do is to adjourn. So we have this wonderful presentation for everyone to consider. So it'll just be a presentation, and when a third board member shows up, which I understand will be around 6:20, we'll officially call the meeting to order, and then everyone in the state legislature will be happy because we followed the statute. So I'm going to turn it over to our Director of Administration, who does everything here and does a great job, and gender.
Thanks everyone for being here tonight. The reason we're here is to talk about the Bay Road Corridor Study. This is a study to look at possible non-motorized infrastructure on Bay Road. So that's for pedestrians, cyclists, to increase safety. This is what you would call a scoping study. So if we were to, at some point, decide, yes, we want to build something like this, the scoping study is the foundation. It's the first step to, it's a requirement if you want to get outside funds, if you want to get federal money to do these kinds of projects. They are expensive, so that's a good way to go. We met in October. We looked at existing conditions, and this is the second step in the process, looking at the different design options and what the costs and issues may be. So with that, I'll turn it over to our consultant, Beth Isler, who drove up from Boston today to be with us.
Welcome, Beth.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks. It's good to be kind of home. I actually lived in Burlington for 7 years, so it's good to be back.
Welcome.
Can you maybe drive for me? Because I don't want to have my back to people. Okay. So good evening. Thank you for coming.
Turn off one of these.
As Ann mentioned, this is the alternatives presentation for the Bay Road Bicycle and Pedestrian Scoping Study. And yeah. I don't think your mic's on. I think it's just for the video. Yeah, so, but can you hear me okay? Okay. So we can go to the next slide. And so tonight I just want to go over the background to the study and review the 3 alternatives that we've come up with, and then talk about the schedule for the project and next steps, and then we'll open it up to comments and discussion. So we can go to the next slide. And so this project is a partnership of the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission and the town of Shelburne. And I work for a company called Toole Design Group. I'm a transportation planner and engineer there, and we specialize in bicycling.
Excuse me 1 second. Call the meeting to order.
And we have also been working with Hartgen archaeological consultants who looked at the potential archaeological impacts to such a facility going in. So as Ann mentioned, this is a scoping study. A scoping study is essentially, you know that there's an issue in an area, and so through the scoping study, you formally identify the issue, you identify how you want to, 3 alternatives, usually 3, some potential solutions, you consider the impacts of each one, you talk about it with the community, you get their input, and you identify a preferred alternative, which is what we hope to do tonight. And from there on, we can move the project forward, but this is very much a preliminary step that has to happen in almost any project, as Ann said, that needs to get additional funding. So as we know, the project study area is Bay Road between Harbor Road and Shelburne Road. And we can go to the next slide. And the cross-section of Bay Road in this area is 4 rods or 66 feet. But the roadway itself is 24 feet. So there's a lot of extra space on either side for, well, technically, the right-of-way has extra space for additional facilities. So next slide. And as Ann mentioned, back in October, there was a local concerns meeting. And some of the issues that we took away, that we heard from that, were that Bay Road can be very uncomfortable for people bicycling or walking, partly because the speed of the vehicles makes it uncomfortable, and there's also no designated room for them. Sight distances are an issue, particularly by the railroad underpass. There's poor connectivity. There's great recreational facilities on either side with the trail systems. There's also neighborhoods. And for points beyond Bay Road, it's hard to get to these areas on Bay Road. So if there could be improved connectivity, that would be great. And then we also know about the railroad underpass and that there's a series of issues simply with that alone. But that's a separate study that's going on right now. So tonight, this is our one opportunity to talk about the rest of the corridor, but there will be more opportunities to talk about the underpass going forward. But tonight, we want to make sure that we address everything else. So that's it for that side. So I also wanted to point out that this is not just about, we've all seen the bicyclists out there Saturday morning, a whole group of them, and they're Lycra. I used to say spandex, and I got corrected. It's Lycra. And they're really fast, and they're strong riders, and they typically like to ride on the road because it's much faster for them. So we are not necessarily talking about those riders. We're talking about people like me who just has a bicycle with a bell and a basket, and I like to tool around and get to where I'm going, but I'm not a racer. So I would be what you might call one of the interested but concerned. So this sketch, or pie chart, is based on some research conducted out in Oregon, and they found that 37% of the population is not going to ride a bicycle no matter what. Either they physically can't or they're simply not interested. So you're not going to get them on a bike, and that's fine. 7% are what we call strong and fearless, and they're the ones Saturday morning racing, and that's great. Yeah. 5% are enthusiastic and confident. They would like to be out there, but they would also like a little bit of designated space and a little bit of separation from traffic. They're not fast enough or aggressive enough to ride with traffic. And then the rest, 51%, are what we call interested but concerned. And they would like to ride a bicycle, either for fun or transportation, but they definitely need a facility dedicated to them, whether it's a separated bike lane or a shared use path or something like that. So just to kind of set the stage, we're talking about a lot of different types of riders. We're also talking about people walking their dogs, people using mobility devices, things like that. So I just want to set the stage that we're not just talking about one small segment of the population. This is a pretty large group that we're thinking about. Okay. So with that in mind, the purpose of the study, and we like to get the purpose and need set initially so that we make sure that the entire project stays on track and that we don't waver and end up solving another issue that wasn't originally planned for. So the purpose of this study is to develop a safe route for everyone, whether they are driving a car, walking, bicycling, or whatever, along Bay Road. So then if we go to our needs, these are a little bit more specific, and again, just keep us on track to make sure that whatever solution we come up with is actually solving the problem that we initially identified. So we want to create a safe space in the corridor for people regardless of how they're going through it. We want to improve connectivity. There's, as I mentioned, a lot of great destinations on and around Bay Road that we want to help people get to. We want to have consistent facility types. We don't want to bounce people from walking along the side of the road to then having a sidewalk to them being back on the road and all of that. We want to have one consistent facility. And we want to create equity among the different user types. Right now, the corridor is just a roadway. It's only for motorists. We would like to create some space for other people who are also using the corridor. Next slide. Okay, so as I mentioned, we came up with 3 ideas for how to meet this purpose and need. So we're going to go through each one of them. The first was a shared use path, which I'll show you in a minute what I mean by shared use path, along the north side. So that's the lake side of Bay Road. The second would be a shared use path along the south side, the other side. And the third would be, sorry, that's kind of hard to read. I shouldn't have chosen yellow. Would be on-road bicycle lanes with a sidewalk along the south side. And this involves road widening to get enough space for the bike lane. So, elements that are common to all of these alternatives, regardless of which one. First of all, we would have an enhanced crosswalk from the Ty Hall path to Shelburne Bay Park. There's a crosswalk there now, but we want to increase the safety of that. So maybe having some better signage, maybe some blinking beacons, something like that. There would be improvements to the intersection at Harbor Road and also at Shelburne Road. And each of these alternatives assumes that the Bay Bridge is being reconstructed. And they also assume that there will be improvements to the railroad underpass. We just don't know what they will be yet. So that's coming, but it's in a separate study, a parallel study. There will also be driveway crossings in each of these. So what is a driveway crossing? It's recommended, and if you hop to the next slide, we want to make sure that if there is a facility, whether it's a shared use path or what, that it continues across the driveway. This just makes it safer for everybody. The vehicles know to expect pedestrians and people on bicycles because there's a path going across the driveway as opposed to just ending it and having the driveway go across. So it kind of alerts everybody to the potential that this is a crossing point. Even though it's a driveway, it's not a full-on intersection, but just some subtle design parts that we want to be sure to include. So if we look at alternative one, this is our shared use path on the north side, the bay side. We leave the roadway as it is, and then we have a 5-foot buffer to give some separation between the shared use path and the roadway. And then we have a shared use path that would maybe be 8 to 11 feet wide. We tried to make it a little bit more narrow in places that were more constrained. So let's go to the next slide. Just to give you an idea of what this might look like, to give you a visual, this is for the south side, but still just the idea of a shared use path. We did a photo rendering, and that's what it might look like. We've got a barrier, kind of a buffer between the vehicle traffic and the people using the shared use path. And this also allows us to have drainage so that we don't have to go to a closed drainage system. It saves some money that way. So that's an idea of what it might look like. So as I mentioned, with each of these alternatives, we want to take a careful look at what the impacts are. So the major pinch point for alternative one is in this area. I forget what number it is, maybe 380, 580 Bay Road. But we can go to the next slide. We zoom in. 670, 686, and 700. If you had a shared use path on that side of the road, it's going to have some very significant impacts. At one point, and this is the major area where you have impacts, they come to within 3.5 feet of the existing structures. That's really significant. So let's make sure that we're acknowledging that as we go forward. That's the biggest pinch point for this. So that's alternative one. Alternative two, on the other side of the road, so that kind of darker blue line, here's the cross section again, it's just on the other side, same idea, just a mirror image. But on this side of the road, we have much fewer impacts. Again, this is the pinch point for alternative two, excuse me. And that one, the impact is that there's a lot of driveways that are being crossed, but that's it. You're not coming too close to a structure. There are more driveways, but the biggest concern with driveways is that you have potential crossing points and conflict points between vehicles and people walking or people bicycling. So that's the major issue with alternative two.
How about trees? Are there
Yes.
trees that would have to come down
Yes.
on the road?
Probably. Yeah, we did count the utility poles, but we also considered the option of adding in new trees. So that would be an option as you move forward if you decided that this were the alternative that you wanted to go with.
Excuse me, 1 second before we go forward. Beth, what do you prefer? When people have questions, would you like them to ask as you present, or would you like them to wait till the end?
I think it might be best if we wait until the end. We can get through all of these.
Okay, so
unless you
if
have a
everybody doesn't
preference.
mind, please save your questions, and everyone will have an opportunity to ask.
Just so that we can give each of the alternatives a fair shot. So, okay, so alternative two, the biggest pinch point is the driveways that are being crossed on the south side. And then alternative three, so on-road bicycle lanes and a sidewalk along the south side. This involves roadway widening. So as you can see, we're taking up more of the right-of-way here. We have 24 feet of the roadway for the vehicles, but then we add 6 feet on either side for a bicycle lane. And then on the south side, to add the sidewalk, even though it's a 5-foot sidewalk, you really have to shift everything over. So this leads to impacts on both sides of the road, which is pretty significant. And also when you're doing a roadway widening, it's much more significant because you have to build the road bed to support vehicles as opposed to a bicycle path. So here we do still have some impacts on both sides in the same area as the first alternative. We do come within, the edge of the roadway comes 7 feet from the existing structures. So not as bad as alternative one, but still very close. But that, again, is the major pinch point for this one. So with that, so to just kind of sum up all three of these at once, this is what we call our evaluation matrix. And yes, each one meets the project purpose and need, but the two areas where they really you can see some distinction between the three are the second row, driveway crossings and proximity to structures, and then the last row, the cost estimates. So the driveway crossings, as I mentioned, there's 18 in the first alternative, a few more in the second alternative because there are more houses on that side. And then alternative three, since there are houses, since there would be impacts on both sides, you have twice as many driveways that you're impacting. And then with the structures, alternatives 1 and 3 have really come close to some of those structures, 3.5 feet and 7 feet, which is really not a lot. And then secondly, the cost estimates, we're still refining these, but just to give you a sense of the order of magnitude, there's not a huge difference between the shared use path alternatives, but once you get into road widening, it's much more significant, the costs are. And that's kind of a rundown of a comparison of all three of them. And as I mentioned, the railroad underpass, that is definitely an important part of the study, but it's being, because it's kind of its own can of worms, it's being considered separately but parallel. So they expect results in June. They're collecting data and they're analyzing. And so you will have opportunities to comment on the railroad underpass, but tonight we want to be sure to talk about the rest of the corridor. And this website has updates for you on that project. Okay, so I'm going to be back here next month to talk, whatever preferred alternative is identified tonight. We'll go back, we'll refine that a little bit more. We'll create a draft report, and I'll be back next month to talk about that and fill you in on what we've done since tonight. And that's it. So now we can open it up to discussion.
Beth, we have rules of procedure here, and I'd like to suggest we waive them. Usually all the questions come to the board.
Okay.
But you're the presenter here, and you're the one with the expertise, so if the rest of the board agrees, would it be okay for everybody? Okay?
Okay.
So, it's a sense of the board. So please, feel free, and, but we are on TV, so if everyone could please identify themselves and come up to the microphone to speak, that would be great. I'll leave, you want me to call on people, or do you want to call on people?
You probably know people face by face, so.
Steve, you were first, right?
Steve Mayfield, Bay Road. I saw three distinct ones, and you were saying everything on this one has to be on the north side, so it affects these people. Everyone here has to be on the south side. Why couldn't the path stay on the north side, on the beach side, and the road actually move to the south as it approaches the bridge so that it keeps the path away from those houses instead of the entire...
Yeah.
2/3 of the road is beachside. So it would make more sense to expand out on that side, but there are those 4 houses or 5 houses that are on that side.
Yeah.
Couldn't Bay Road shift 8 feet this way when you get to those houses so that the path could stay on that side but not affect those houses instead of affecting everybody?
Right. That's a great question. And honestly, we had not considered it. I think that the cost would probably be pretty high for that just because you're moving the roadway. But we simply hadn't considered it. But that is an option.
Please, come on up.
Hi, my name is John Kohler. I live at 13 Spinnaker. I'm on the south side. Many of my neighbors are here. And on that south side proposal, it's basically coming in probably, 10 feet from the edge of the road,
Just about.
which is pretty much going to take out our fences. Okay. I'm not a big supporter of this particular project. You do have 2 major obstacles, and that's the railroad bridge, which is dilapidated and cement falling down there on a daily basis. And you have the La Platte River Bridge, which is in a very bad state of repairs. And both of those places, if you're a walker or a biker, you got to run for your lives when you go either under it or over it.
Yeah.
Now, one alternative I don't see up there, which to me is a less costly and would get it done a lot quicker, is to extend the bike path that we paid money for that truncates over here by the ball field
Okay.
and run it around Harbor Road to Shelburne Farms and then down Bay Road and have it truncate by the boat access
Okay.
while we figure out what we're going to do with the Bay Road Bridge and the railroad underpass.
Okay.
So
Yeah, that's one we hadn't considered, but I like that idea. Yeah, that's something we can include in the notes and bring forward.
Thanks, John. Who's next? Linda. Oh, sorry, Doug. There's a lot of pressure on me, man. I'm just calling him as I sit.
Well, my name is Linda Lavalette, and I live at 451 Bay Road, and mine was the house that was 10 feet, 7 feet from the south side. And let me just say, it's great to have these wonderful paths, but they're not necessary. It's not necessary. There is no destination at the end of Bay Road. You've got Shelburne Farms, they don't allow bikes. This, and everyone should be very aware, is not a Shelburne unique thing. This is the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission's first stab at making Bay Road and Harbor Road part of the Chittenden County Bike Path Network. And what that means is, have you ever been on the bike path up in Burlington that goes by the lake? Have you ever seen it goes? How far have you gone, my son?
All the way up to South
Okay? There's hundreds of people that use that. This is part of the plan. Bay Road, Chittenden County Regional Bike Path Network. It's on their proposed maps. We're not talking about just the locals scooting down through on this wonderful but expensive path that is going to take my front lawn, or it's going to take my neighbor's front lawn, that's going to cost $1 million. And isn't that what we paid for Webster Road, and they still are walking on the road? Sidewalks. You ever go through the Harbor Road by the school and see everyone jogging on the road when you've got a sidewalk on both sides? I think a sidewalk is a waste of money. This is not necessary. Bay Road is not suitable for widening. You say it's 4 rods, but there are places that are going to be legally challenged at 3 rods, and one of them is your south end tight point. This is an older road. The houses are extremely close to the road. We have drainage down to the road and they want to widen it. And what's that going to do? Make a bank? I've got 10 feet in a bank and then I've got the sidewalk. And the thing about this is the 7% of these talented but fearless bikers. Well, when this is part of the network of the county, you're going to get all kinds of races going down through there. You're going to get all kinds of people scooting down, and they yell at each other because they're going so fast. So I can hear them 5 houses up. I can hear their conversations 5 houses down. My beagle barks at them from 7 houses on either side, and I'm going to have all this traffic. Now, what about the landowners? We have got 20% of Shelburne land is conserved. 20%. Why take 10 feet out of somebody's front yard just so unnamed people can be more safe? We've been biking and walking on Bay Road for decades, and I see plenty of my neighbors here who've lived on Bay Road for decades, and this is not helping us at all. It's helping an unnamed group for safety reasons, and I don't recollect any pedestrian or bicycle accident on Bay Road. It is not necessary. This is not a suitable place for it. You're infringing on property owners. What happens when the property owners don't want something like this? Is everyone willing to give up 10 or 15 feet of their front lawn when your house is 25 feet from the road? I'm not. I'm going to fight this. And when I die, my sister, the lawyer in the family, is going to continue. Because it's not right. And it's not wanted. Those of you that want to bike safely, I'm all for that. My son's a biker. His fiance's a biker. I don't want anyone to get hurt. But no one's gotten hurt. This is a lot of money, and you think, oh, the federal's going to pay for it. I pay taxes that the federal money kicks back. Nothing is free. It's a waste of money. And somebody's got to stand up for the landowners. It's going to hurt some of us.
Thank you very much, Linda, for your comments. Doug?
Doug Merrill. I live on Mariners Cove, but also own a house on the corner of Spinnaker Lane and Bay Road. One question I had on this is, if you look at the choke points on the east side of the railroad bridge, the choke points are to the south. On the west side, they're to the north. Did you think about doing a crossing like we did on Webster Road and try to minimize the incursion on the choke points?
We did not, but that could be an alternative coming out of tonight. I think it's fair to say that tonight, if people feel like that's a good direction to go in, we could come up with a hybrid of alternatives 1 and 2.
Yes, please.
My name is Ellen McShane. I also live at 743 Bay Road. I'm also not a supporter of any of these ideas. I believe my deed says it's a 3-rod road. I haven't pulled it lately to look at it. But I also remember the presentation that we recently had, and I think, talking about the amount of traffic on this road. And I don't see how this is a safe road to be encouraging people to come and bike and walk all the time, because it's very difficult. And the study that I remember, the gentleman said that on one day in the summer, 3,000 cars went up and down Bay Road. And I really appreciate the police, because since our last meeting, they've slowed the traffic down. They've been stopping people. You can feel it. And I think that people would appreciate what we're doing, but we also have to recognize what the reality is and what the usage of that road is. So I just don't think it's appropriate. I like the hybrid suggestions that, kind of get into the bike path that's already set up.
Okay.
And I'm assuming that means taking fences down and things like that that are in the way. And that's a concern too.
Okay. Yeah, we would have to take a closer look at fences, if they would actually have to come down. In our first analysis, it didn't seem like any would, but we would take a closer look at that, definitely.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, please.
Paul Boisvert, 743 Bay Road, Shelburne. What I want to know is, are you going to be stealing our land to do this? Because this is a 3-rod road, and I have a very solid fence set in concrete, designed by my architect, that's on my property, that I have a Shelburne permit for when I built my house. It's on my property. Are you going to steal my land and ask me to take my fence down to build this? Because I don't think it's wide enough, the existing space between what you're talking about here, 7, 8, 10 feet, you're gonna run into my fence, which means that you're gonna ask me to take down a $15,000 fence, and you're gonna ask me to steal my property to do it, because that fence is on my property, and for me to move that fence, I spent $15,000 building that fence, and it's on my property. And there's no way I'm moving that fence. You'll be talking to my lawyer. I'll hold this up in court as long as I have to. Because I think this is a really dumb idea.
It's our understanding, based on the preliminary research, that it's a 4-rod road, so
3-rod road. Look it up.
I'm sorry we did.
Okay.
Yes, a rod is, I think, 14 and a half feet, so it's just another unit of measurement. So a 4-rod is actually 66 feet.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
I'm sorry, I'm just, for
Could
those
you
of us-
please take the microphone and identify yourself? Thank you.
Hi, Kate Longmaid. I just want to clarify some things so I understand. Maybe other people don't fully understand. So are you implying that that's the town's right-of-way?
Right, that's our understanding.
Okay, is your understanding. People have some different understandings.
Right.
All right, I'm very sympathetic to my neighbors. I'm at 11 Bayfield Drive. My name is Kate Longmaid. It looks like the south side or some hybrid might be the most reasonable. That would directly impact my property. However, I'm in favor of at least exploring this. I'm hoping our community can come to some agreement that people can live with. And it gets charged because these are people's homes. And it impacts them. I actually think for some of us it may improve our property value. Other people may disagree. We're on the corner, so we're not going to be as directly impacted as some of our neighbors. And I think coming 3.5 feet within neighbors' homes is unacceptable. I am curious, there are some structures on the south side, I'm thinking one house in particular, that is still quite close to the road. So I'd be concerned for that neighbor as well.
Okay.
But basically my support, and I'm also wondering if the estimates would include compensation for fences, rebuilding fences, replacing trees, because it will impact it will impact what's there already. My primary concern is really around safety and the environment. And our children are no longer at home, so this doesn't directly impact me, but when they were school age, it would have been nice if they could have ridden their bikes to the Shelburne Community School or the Waldorf School for kids who go there. And we simply didn't feel comfortable with that arrangement. And I think we need to support people to the extent they're willing to do something, minimize our carbon footprint. So if people are, in terms of health and the environment, more likely to get on their bikes, I'm all in favor.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Betsy Dempsey. I'm a resident of Bay Road. I'm one of the people on the north side that has a teeny tiny front yard, which I'd like to see I'd like to be able to keep, but I walk Bay Road, most of Bay Road, almost every day, and I have another alternative, which would be a fraction of the cost, which I think would be a terrific idea. Down on the most southern part of Bay Road, where where they have what would be like the 3 feet from you were talking about. You can knock on their window as you're walking by. Anyway, down there we have some crushed white stone in some sections. It's it's only like a foot wide on each side of the road. But I use that all the time because I'd walk oftentimes during rush hour. And I mean, we're only talking a foot. Even if it were a foot and a half, 2 feet, I'd love to see that expanded. I'd be happy to give up a foot and a half of my front yard just for the crushed stone. And while it's not great for those bicyclists that want to go really fast, still, if most bicyclists could move over onto that section if a car were coming. But I'd be happy certainly with that. Any walker would be able to use that. So.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Just a quick comment. There's either a tan or a gold Ford Ranger pickup with your lights on, if that belongs to anyone here. Okay. Any other questions or comments, please?
Hi, Robin Jeffers at 499 Bay Road. And I don't know, I didn't see that it looked at, but both my driveway and my neighbors at 509 are incredibly steep pitch to the road. And if you were to come in 10 or 15 feet, there would be no access left to my house.
Okay.
Or my next door neighbor's house. So that's a pretty deep concern.
And you're on the south side?
I'm on the south side.
Okay, good to know.
And so I think some of the alternatives that have been mentioned are worth looking into.
Yeah.
I really, based on what I've seen, I think another alternative or several would be much better received than what's been presented tonight.
Okay.
From people on both sides. I've also, like on Spear Street, just wonder why we don't just widen the road and have one lane of asphalt set aside for bikes. It just seems to me like without adding the drainage and a full width bike path on such a narrow road, that there might be alternatives that are more conservative, that might be more welcomed by the entire community. I also walk on Bay Road quite frequently, and it's not scary at all. I
Okay.
would say, I can see why it might be for a bicyclist, but certainly as a pedestrian, there's plenty of shoulder to walk on, and it's not scary.
Okay.
It's friendly.
Okay.
Thank you, Robin.
And speed, thank you.
Oh, no, please.
No, one more thing. I know that all of us are concerned about speed, and certainly lessening of speed would certainly make everybody more comfortable, both bikes and pedestrians, for those people who are experiencing fears.
Okay.
That's it.
Chief, I see you're here. I don't want to put you on the spot if you don't want to speak, but do you have any comments about the road and safety and thoughts like that? This is Chief Jim Warden, the Chief of Police.
There was an increase in speed, but that's all over the whole town. We have increased on some of the roads, and we have very few accidents on Bay Road. I don't know where the count comes for the amount of pedestrians that I hear once in a while, because I asked our patrol. We normally don't see that many. We see some bikes that come sailing down through there like rockets, and that's scary also, because up on Webster Road, cars have had to slide to stops and almost hit them. So it's not conducive to smooth for bicycles that are doing high speed, but we have very few problems on Bay Road. We don't.
Thank you, Chief. Doug?
I think I saw in there that the road surface is 12 feet wide in each lane.
Yes.
When I was on the Bike and Path Pedestrian Committee, I know one of the things we talked about, and I don't know if you've looked at this at all, is narrowing the path of travel. And I know our Public Works head is not a big fan of this, but personally, I see that as lowering the speed. If you make the road psychologically narrower, it psychologically goes slower, and it creates more space for bike lanes without physically widening the pavement. Has that
Yeah.
been looked at?
We can refine alternative 3 to look at that, since we were talking about widening there anyways. But yeah, we could narrow those lanes by maybe a foot or so, and see if we could recoup some width there.
With the railroad bridge, you can't have a
Right.
particularly large truck anyway.
Yeah.
Well, a large truck tried that just a couple weeks ago.
Almost succeeded.
And if I could answer a little bit of your question, the portion of Bay Road that we repaved last summer, when we did the striping, we did bring in the stripes to be 10-foot lanes there. So on a small portion of Bay Road, we did what you're talking about.
Thank you. Please, Steve, I'll get back to you, but before you, I'd like to give everyone a chance before I get to seconds. Doug's special, he's a big guy. So please, back there.
Hi, I'm Roxanne Tennant-Nelson. I'm on Yacht Haven and Bay Road. Hi, neighbors and friends. I would really like to support a path that would allow our kids to get to school and allow for the enjoyment of Shelburne Farms and the Bay, Shelburne Bay Park. And I also am on that road nearly every day, running, biking, but I don't do it with my kids because it's just not safe. And I would love to do it with them more, and that would be great. But I do want to hear our neighbors' concerns. These are real concerns. For my house, it's, you're waking up with a cup of coffee and you're going to see people on the road. I mean, that completely changes our way of living. And I don't think the cost estimates are real unless you add in everything that was suggested here, including trees, fences, building barriers where homes are going to be in sight path of this path. That needs to be included, and we need to understand that if this study is going to be truly looked at and considered by this community. I think everybody needs to know what the alternatives are. There were several hybrids suggested tonight, as well as a Harbor Road complete alternative. And so I think that those are really, really important in order to consider this study complete. And so I just wanted to say, I think I echo a lot of, particularly this woman here, we'd really love to see the alternatives. We'd like for this to happen, but we also need to understand exactly the impact and how it would impact ourselves, our community, and the homeowners who are right there along the road. So that's it. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Please.
Barbara Jewett Noyes. I live at 376 Bay Road. My husband and I have been there for 40 years. My first question is, when you're showing the north side, your cost estimate isn't taking into account relocation of the gas line, where it does with the widening of the road.
Right. The widening of the road goes down deeper and would more likely impact the gas line, whereas if you're just doing the shared use path in alternative one, it doesn't go down so deep, so it wouldn't interfere with the gas line.
Okay. I agree with Linda as far as this is an initiative of the Chittenden County Planning Commission. Wasn't something that came from Shelburne or people on Bay Road or the area. This is the county initiative that started all of this. My husband and I moved there basically because we like the rural characteristic when we moved there. A lot of the current housing developments that are there were not there at the time. We realized when we moved there were no sidewalks, there were no streetlights. We enjoyed that. That's the reason we went there, and we realized that if we were going to be walking or biking from our home, then we were going to be doing it on the road. And we have been doing that for years, and we've never had any concern about walking and biking along that road. The north side, it will definitely impact our home. We'll have trees come out of our lawn, and the gardens that we have worked on for quite a number of years, most of that or a good percentage of that will have to be removed. I don't want to see that removed to have a paved path or any type of path. We already have enough pavement and things here. We're looking at doing stormwater fees in the future and having taxation on that. You put in a path, you're going to have to be looking for taxation and fees on that because that's impervious surface. It's not grass, it's not trees, it's not gardens. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please.
Hi, my name's Jeff Zwaber. I live at 49 Bayview Lane. And I think alternative 1 and 2, a hybrid of that would be something that could probably address a lot of the concerns. I heard a lot of legitimate concerns here, but I think it was, from a conceptual level, it was well presented, the three options, and that once you sharpen your pencils and go back and take a more detailed look at alternative 1 and 2, I'm very optimistic that a lot of those concerns that have been brought up can be addressed.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Do we have more? Steve had another comment, but before Steve, anybody who hasn't spoken? please, back there, and then you.
Thank you. Hi, Mike Stoll, 20 Crown Road. I'm opposed to this, in all honesty. I mean, I've already had my property taken away once, some of it, when they widened the Route 7 way there. And we do have gas lines running in front of my house. And I look across the street and I see the Red Apple Motel, and there's nothing happening there. I mean, I can see a hybrid of, if people want to have it happen, jumping from one side to the other. Inconvenient, yeah, but it's one way to do it. But overall, I'm not for it. I don't see a real need for it either with what everybody else has said here.
Thank
what
you
I've
very
seen.
Thank you. And then this lady right here.
My name is Gillian Dorfman, and I have more of a question rather than a comment. You mentioned that $1 million for the two, but that doesn't. I presume that doesn't take into account the cost of the bridge.
Correct.
And that, to me, is the real critical safety point. And so, even if you didn't do all this other stuff, I don't know whether there's, a plan for that, because you've got fishermen, you've got walkers, and that anyone can easily get off the path just to walk on the side. But until you get to that bridge, that's the, it's so narrow. If it was possible to sort of separate pedestrians and cars at that point, and even whether you can change the route so that it actually slows cars coming down and before they hit sort of the housing area. But
certainly. So we assume that that bridge will likely be reconstructed in the next few years anyways, so those concerns would be taken into account then.
Everyone's talking about the same bridge. I think this comment was the underpass.
Not the underpass. The
you're
big
talking about
bridge.
the actual. Okay. Fair enough.
So, but yeah, that would be addressed as that bridge is reconstructed, definitely to have, at least, because as you said, you can jump off the road, but you can't, well, you can jump off the bridge, but you wouldn't, so yes.
Okay, so let's take a couple more minutes of comments. Then I want to give everybody on the select board a chance to give their thoughts. Who hasn't spoken yet? Kate Lally.
Hi. I am interested in seeing you guys pursue the hybrid approach that would blend aspects of 1 and 2. Okay. I have to say I'm a little disappointed in what's been presented. It's very seems sort of massive to me, not really very reflective of the context that is there. Bay Road has a lot of charm, and I think many people here feel that way and would be sorry to see that go. So I think it would be nice to try and balance that, and that may mean not being able to have a consistently, the ideal sort of, in a perfect world if you were starting off from scratch, because that's not what the context is. So I think something that considers opportunities where, like for example, from the Ty Hall Path to our neighborhood, which is the Spinnaker Yacht Haven, there's a fair amount of width through there, right? And only a few property owners. That seems like a sort of a straightforward thing to have a path there. And then something that maybe the character of the path changes as you go on. We're just looking for, I think, more, I speak certainly for myself, more safety and security. I would really like an off-road facility if possible, but it doesn't have to be something that we can, adults can ride bicycles on and things like that. I don't think that's warranted.
Okay. So do you mean like a more narrow path, or like I'm just thinking off, separated from the road, but?
Yes, I mean, this has been achieved in older communities, elsewhere, less massively,
Okay.
where, for instance, why do we need to have 2 lanes of traffic being able to pass each other? I mean, I think that we can have maybe a narrower path, and if somebody's coming your way, maybe that's sort of an opportunity to maybe stop and say hello to somebody, that kind of thing. So just if you could sort of think a little bit that way, and then maybe that would, and again, I think I like Doug's idea of narrowing the lanes. That would help quite a bit. And there may be a way to find a bit more room and find it in a way that people would find a bit more acceptable.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks, Kate. Anyone who hasn't spoken? Steve?
Hi, Stephen Bod, 11 Bayfield Drive. I just want to generally say I'm in support of some type of access that allows people to walk and bike safely. I think it's easy for us to stay here as, adults, There are any kids here? Would you let your 7-year-old walk down Bay Road? You feel safe, you feel safe. Would you let your 7-year-old walk down there and really feel safe about that? I'm not so sure. So generally speaking, I support some type of access. I agree, it seems like a pretty massive project. I think some kind of fine-tuned kind of project, maybe a lot smaller. I'm one of those bicyclists that does like to ride fast, and I'll ride on the road. I don't care about that, and I'll take my chances. But I think having the opportunity for other people who want to walk their dogs, ride slowly, I think there is some kind of narrower path type alternative I think would be reasonable for this road.
Thank you, Stephen. Did everyone get a chance to talk? Because we're running out of time. Great. Why don't I turn it over to the board for comments in no specific order. Who would like to go first? If anyone.
I'd be more comfortable with a plan that adapted to the community rather than the community adapting to the plan. And I second the comment that these are two continuous strips from Shelburne Road to the intersection at the farms without, I don't want to say without any imagination, but they're just simply straight line strips. And as alternatives, it would seem to me there might even be more mixes that can address some of the very serious concerns that have been raised. If for no other reason to advance the discussion, next time we welcome you back, which can't be soon enough.
Thanks, Jerry. Anyone else who want to be next?
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Well, I'd just say, I'm sorry I missed the presentation part of this, but I am extremely familiar with the area. I live on Spinnaker Lane, and most of my neighbors are here, so that's a good thing to see. I think, to develop anything like this and even think for a nanosecond that we can take people's property is just not a realistic approach to this type of thing. I think that one thing we learned as we did paving in that area last summer was that if we do some shoulder work and give people a place to walk on the edge, they don't need 4 or 5 feet, they need 2 feet. We need to protect the roadway, so by building those shoulders up, we have 2 advantages, right? We're protecting that edge of the road, but we're also giving people a place to go so they can be out of the mainstream traffic. The hybrid approach, working around Harbor Road and then coming down to the existing crossing of the La Platte is a good idea. That's where the emphasis of a lot of walkers and bikers are. They use the Tie Hall path to come to that part of town. So I think it behooves us to develop that, as a thing. That doesn't impact a lot of people because it's pretty rural, but it will, for the investment, give us the best solution, in my opinion. We all know those bridges need a lot of work, and I'll tell you that we're working very hard to get them fixed and repaired. Exactly when, we don't know, but we are working very, very hard on it. So that's, kind of my 2 cents worth. I think going the other direction, when you go from the railroad bridge towards Route 7, that area, if we just did a little bit of the shoulder work, would be a significant improvement for people to walk. I do walk that section, when I have my car serviced up there on Route 7, and I'm never really concerned. So I echo what you said, that you can see the traffic, you can hear it. By doing what we did at the railroad bridge and putting stop signs has slowed the traffic down, which has helped the situation.
So I think we're on to something in that regard, so. So that's
Thank you,
probably.
John. Josh or Colleen, you guys? Sure.
Well, I'm sort of interested, just because through all of the comments tonight and previously, there's always been a question of volume, not just of vehicular traffic, of car traffic, but pedestrian and bicycle traffic. So are there any good data that really talk about numbers of pedestrians and bicyclists at various times? And because that certainly would give a good sense of what the need or the desire is. And also from a countywide perspective, I am assuming similar things have happened at different places. Are there any data that sort of suggest what that kind of volume would change between the situation where it exists now or a newer, sort of more directed pavement?
That's a great question. Unfortunately, for bicycle and pedestrian volumes, it's a lot like building a bridge. You don't know how many people are going to use it until it's actually there. So even if we had counts today, it wouldn't be reflective of what it could be if there were facilities there. But we can check and see what data are available for, I don't know that there will be before and after data, but we can see what current volumes are at facilities that are potentially similar to what this could be. So we can look that up.
That's it. Colleen?
I apologize for missing the presentation. I was really looking forward to it. And having come in late, I'm going to restrain myself from commenting too much, other than to say that professionally, there's no question in my mind that giving people a place to walk that's not within 2 feet of large vehicles is by far safer. And I don't think that there's any question in most people's mind, especially when it comes to children and riding on bicycles. And from what I see and being married to an orthopedic trauma surgeon, if we can give people that room to walk in a safe way, I think that if you build it, they will come. Going back to your question about numbers, and I think that if there weren't support enough for the project and a cry or a need for a safer walkway there, this wouldn't be an issue even today. But the other big part as far as being a select board member is just seeing whether there's enough community support for it.
Thank you, Colleen. So we've had 2 Field of Dreams references. Sure, please.
In addition to the safety benefits, I didn't mention this, but there are typically, there's the health benefits of people getting more active transportation, the environmental benefits, and also assuming that we build it in a way that does not impact the stormwater. And also, in terms of economic development, this usually brings a significant amount of new money to an area, and it increases the property values of the homes along the bike path, research has shown, so just to throw that out there.
I've got to, I'm sorry, I've got to do this. I want to ask people. This is my house, this right here. You think that property's going to increase?
No.
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 No. Nor is that one or that one. So, it's a county effort, and you're right, when it's built, they're going to use it, but they're not going to be Shelburne people. You're going to see all of Chittenden County come down for the beautiful run. It's a gorgeous view, but why do the landowners have to suffer? There are places and places in Shelburne and in the county to walk and bike.
Thank you, Linda.
And give them a couple of extra feet. But if you bring that within 7 to 10 feet of my front door, I suffer. Who's going to compensate the property owners? Is there a budget for that?
Thank you, Linda. Let me, I'm sorry, everybody had at least one chance to talk, and it is 7 o'clock already. I haven't said anything yet at all, just facilitated this. I can tell you that there's a couple of things to consider. We operate pursuant to our comprehensive town plan. If people want to change the comprehensive town plan, then I urge you to go before the Planning Commission and try to change the town plan, because you have every right to do it. Currently, the town plan strongly promotes bicycling and pedestrian traffic. So that's something to consider. There's also constitutional issues here and private property rights. I can tell you, there is no way I will ever be in favor, absent an overriding safety issue or some issue that isn't present here, of ever coming within 3.5 feet of someone's house. I'm never going to support that. Never. This board, to my knowledge, and I've been on this board for 8+ years, has never taken a position on this issue. We are not here tonight to vote yes or to vote no on this path. What we're here for is a scoping study to determine where we want to explore. What makes sense, what doesn't make sense. We've heard a lot of valid comments tonight. I think these your comment about you have a steep front yard and you have no way to get to your house, that's a pretty dramatic comment to me. So I just asked everyone to consider where we're at here. It's really to explore possibilities. It's not to close doors. It's to open doors to see where we can go. I've heard ideas that I guess, Beth, you hadn't considered that sound better to me than, frankly, any of the three proposals that you put forward. So would be very interested in what the board thinks, because they're looking for a preferred alternative, and frankly, I'm not sure if we're at that stage yet, Beth. So I'd like to operate from a position of knowledge. I'd like to operate in a way that makes sense. Linda has some legitimate comments. I've spoken with her at her house. Taking 15 feet away from her front lawn would be terrible to her and her family. It would be absolutely horrible. But going to 3.5 feet on the other side would be terrible too. But we have something in our town plan that says this is our goal. So it's one of those things, if you really want to get involved with the town plan, because this is what we're supposed to base our decision on. So it puts us in a difficult position here. I, for one, would be interested. I'm not prepared to say I like any of those three alternatives. I'd be interested in knowing what you guys think.
Not yet.
I don't think I certainly, that was the question I had about data. The other, I think, important question is this discerning about the three rod versus 4 rod. I think that makes a big difference. So without those data, it's hard to.
I'd be interested in exploring something that, we've heard a lot of people talk about, and the word massive scale of this has come up. Maybe there's an alternative that provides for more safety for bicyclists and pedestrians, but that is nowhere near approaching this scale that was presented tonight.
Yeah. Even if it were segmented piece by piece, not only to address really egregious situations, obviously like yours, which couldn't ever be approved, but even if it were segmented either by use or the availability of space, I think that would be very useful. No doubt this is the appropriate start and where rationally you would begin. But I think you've had a pretty good earful that this continuous run on either side is really problematic to the point where it would be hard to identify a preference here.
Absolutely. I think our next step is to refine, explore some of the hybrid options that were suggested. So,
I'm in favor of that. You guys in favor of not choosing any preferred alternative? I think that makes sense for everyone. Look, we don't have a pony in the race here. We're just trying to do what's best, and we want to consider people with different thoughts and different property rights and our town plan. And look, I'm in favor of bicycling. I mean, if not really good at it, but I'm in favor of it, and I want to come up with something, but let's do it in a way that makes really sense for our community. Joe?
So real quick, I think, because we're about to wrap up, and I don't think you're expecting necessarily for us to pick a preferred alternative. You were kind of looking forward for this type of
We needed
feedback.
some
So this
feedback,
was,
yeah.
and so I just want to make sure it's clear, because Ann did a good job. We sent out postcards to everyone on Bay Road, I believe, and also the connecting neighborhoods. So I want to make sure that we keep everyone in the loop. So the next step is,
we'll refine the ideas and I think bring them back and talk with the select board, well, the steering committee, the bike ped committee, and talk it through with
there
them.
will likely be another public presentation, and we'll again put in the effort to make sure that everyone along Bay Road and the connecting neighborhoods is fully aware of when that's going to happen, just like we did tonight.
Joe, I really applaud you and Ann for taking the steps to letting everybody who really impacted by this know.
And we'll continue to do
So
that.
thank you for doing that.
Yeah, that's terrific.
All right, so now we'll, that we have our quorum, consider approval of the agenda. Joe, do you have any comments, suggested changes or anything?
No, I don't think you need to do number 2 under 18, right?
2, litigation with, yeah, no, I'm going to give an update on that.
Usually,
Oh, no.
not in executive session. Let's let everyone
Yes.
clear out.
Yeah. No, I think we should keep it.
If everyone
No,
can clear.
I do want to keep it.
You do?
Yeah.
Do you want everyone clear out?
Yeah, yeah,
first?
we'll just wait 1 minute if you want to take a break for a second. I think just a minute. You have to, okay. We're going to take a 2-minute break. All right?